All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another NFL team preview video for the 2020 season. Today we're going to be continuing on with the NFC South, and we have finally landed on the Atlanta Falcons. So let's begin. All right, so it's been 2 7-9 seasons for Dan Quinn, and a lot of people thought he was going to get fired, but it looks like he's getting another opportunity. And I think that's fair because this division is very tough. It could be one of the toughest ones in the entire league. And the Falcons are kind of due for another really good season, if you will. If you take a look at their history, dating back all the way to 2000, they have these caverns where they go, they do poorly as a sub 500 team for a couple of years, and then they bounce back into a peak or a hill, if you will, where they win 9 or more games for a couple of years. So the trend is on set for them to bounce back from 2 7-9 seasons, and last year was one of those 7-9 seasons that, when you look at it as a whole, you can see two different teams. It was a first half team that went 1-7, and then it was a second half team that went 6-2. So if they can sort of use that momentum that they got in the second half of last year, where they won 4 straight to end the season, and sort of channel that into this season, I think they're going to do pretty well. This division is very hard to win. The Falcons have only done it 3 times in the last 10 years. Or was it the last 20 years? I forget what I looked up, but I know they've had 3 since, I want to say, 2010. Yeah, since 2010 sounds right. That could be wrong though. One thing I wanted to note is that this situation kind of reminds me of 1997, when the Falcons ended their regular season with 3 straight wins, and then they did channel that energy into a 14-2 season where they went to the Super Bowl, albeit they lost to Denver. But I'm just kind of getting those 97, 98 vibes with this team. And there's a lot to like about this team for this year. And they just have to hope that they get the kind of play that they were looking for this year out of some certain players last year. And we'll get into that in a minute. But first, let's take a look at the 2019 recap. As we said last year, they were 7-9 overall. The offense ranked 5th in the league. They were 3rd in passing, 30th in rushing. Devontae Freeman didn't eclipse 700 yards. He is now gone. The defense ranked 20th in the league. They were 22nd in passing and 15th against the run. A lot of young talent and some injuries didn't help either. Dan Quinn is, of course, your head coach, entering his 6th season with a career record of 43-37. Snapshot of the previous 4 years: we have 2018, they were 7-9. 2017, they were 10-6. 2016, they were 11-5, and 2015, they were 8-8. So, as I said, the sort of trend is set up for them to have a decent season this year. And it's not to say that it's not possible, because, as I said, that this division is very difficult. But the Falcons last year were 4-2 against the division. They just struggled everywhere else. They were 6-6 against the conference, and I believe 3-5 at home. So they just need to play better outside of the division, and they should be fine. And with some of the talent that they have on this roster, yes, some of the key pieces like Julio Jones and Matt Ryan are getting up there in age, and it's not likely that Matt Ryan can survive another season of getting hit 40 times or getting sacked 40 times and hit another 100. So the precautions do need to be taken, absolutely. But I do like what's on offense. I really was happy to see Dirk Koetter reunited with Matt Ryan last year after going to be the offensive coordinator for a season. I believe it was Tampa Bay, and now he's back in Atlanta for his 2nd season on his return. So the offense looks good. The defense may be a little bit more questionable, but it's got some great pieces, and if everything comes together and the stars align, this can be a dominating team, and they're going to have to be, given how loaded this division is with the Bucks and the Saints, and even the Panthers are no small potatoes. So let's take a look at the projected starting depth chart here for the Atlanta Falcons. First, we'll begin with, of course, the offense and Matt Ryan at the quarterback position, who had a fantastic year last year, but he did miss 1 game due to injury, I believe. And your backup is Matt Schaub, who is more than reliable in that role. For the running back position, gone are the days of Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. We're now going to be looking at Todd Gurley attempting to resurrect his career, along with Ito Smith, the backup. And I think Gurley's situation here in Atlanta is more desirable than what he was, or what he had in LA with the Rams. Because those years where Todd Gurley was really good and he was an MVP candidate, they had a really good offensive line. Then the franchise let that offensive line go to crap, and then Gurley suddenly wasn't good anymore. And I think it's not to sort of diminish Gurley's skill set. It's sort of to just point out the fact that the offensive line had a lot to do with their success in LA. I mean, you look at the situation where Gurley was injured, and they bring C.J. Anderson in, and he does this. The production doesn't fall off. And same thing with Malcolm Brown. he looked really good in his time that he took over for Gurley while Gurley was injured. So with this offensive line for the Atlanta Falcons, which we'll get into in a second, I think Gurley stands a much better chance than people are giving him at resurrecting his career. And he will definitely be, at least in my opinion, significantly better than Devontae Freeman was. So that is my outlook on the running back position. For the skill set players, they lost Austin Hooper to free agency to Cleveland, so they made a trade with the Ravens to bring over Hayden Hurst, who I just recently found out was turning 30 this year. That kind of surprised me, but he's just one of those older players that got drafted late. For the wide receivers, we have Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, one of the best wide receivers in the league. And for the third wide receiver spot, I did pencil in Laquan Treadwell, but that's incorrect. Coming from a Vikings fan, I was just like, ooh, Laquan Treadwell, I forgot they signed him. I'll pencil him in. Obviously, I think the third wide receiver in this offense is going to be Russell Gage after, the decent year that he had last year. And Laquan Treadwell is just anemic when it comes to catching the ball, which is what wide receivers are supposed to be good at. And I don't think anybody really should trust him with any sort of serious role, but we'll see how he does this year. I do hope he succeeds. I would like to see that. Moving on to the offensive line, Jake Matthews at left tackle, Carpenter, Mack, Lindstrom, and McGarry. Lindstrom and McGarry didn't do all what they expected them to do. Lindstrom and McGarry both being first-round picks 2 years ago. McGarry that they had to trade back up into the first round to get him. Lindstrom, coming out of college at the time, was the best interior offensive lineman in that draft class, and I still think he is to this day. He just needs more time to develop, and I think he'll be a lot better this year. Same thing goes for McGarry, who I didn't really see as a first round pick in that draft, maybe an early second, but at the same time, late first, early second, those guys are sometimes interchangeable. So they just need to have a better season on that right side. The left side is great. Carpenter could probably get flipped out for somebody else, but I don't think he will. And Mack is one of the better centers in the league, even if he is pushing it up there in age a little bit. Moving on to the defense, starting with the back seven, we have Neal and I think it's Kazi. I don't know how you say his last name. I didn't look it up again. It's just one of those things I forget to do before I hit record. Of course, they didn't sign Desmond Trufant to an extension, so they had to get a corner in the draft, and that's why this year with the first round pick, they went with A.J. Terrell out of Clemson. A little bit rich for my taste, or my blood, if you will. There was some corners that got drafted after him that I liked a lot better, aka Jeff Gladney. But I think AJ Terrell is a really phenomenal player, and I think he will succeed in this defense. It just may take some time for him to get used to the speed of the game. On the other side, we have Isaiah Oliver, who was a draft pick I liked coming out of college a couple years ago, but he has been inconsistent, and he's going to need to step up this year. For the linebackers, this is one of those things when I was researching for this video, it doesn't appear that they run a traditional 4-3 defense, so you're going to have to excuse me if some of this is inaccurate, and, by all means in the comments, let it be known what those inaccuracies are. But for the time being, just for this setup, this is what I have. Olakun, Jones, and Walker. I don't anticipate Michael Walker being the starter on day one because of where he was drafted, in this draft in the middle rounds. But at the same time, it was just sort of what I decided to do at the moment. The defensive line is great. You got McKinley, Davidson, Grady Jarrett, and Dante Fowler. Grady Jarrett is one of the more underrated interior defensive linemen in this league, and it is a crime that he is not a household name, at least not at this point. At least I don't think he's a household name. He should be, but he's not for some reason. So the defense just needs to play better, obviously, with that 20th overall ranking that they had last year. They've moved it. They've got some new pieces on this year, and hopefully it will work out. So really, a lot of this hinges on the defense. The offense was really great last year, but a lot of times they were playing from behind. So it just needs to be a more balanced situation where the defense is contributing more than its fair share, and they should be fine in this division. Remember, there was a couple years ago where they won 10 or 11 games, finished third in the division, still made the playoffs. That's just how tough it is in the NFC South to succeed. So that is your look at the projected starting depth chart for the Atlanta Falcons of 2020. Let's move on to the schedule. The schedule I don't like. I'm not a fan of this. If this was my team's schedule, I'd be kind of upset because just the every other week aspect of it is kind of annoying. So the good news is that you do open at home against Seattle. You don't have to make that trip to the Seahawks over there in Seattle, so that's nice. And then you got the Cowboys on the road, Bears at home, Packers on the road, Panthers at home, Vikings on the road, Lions at home, and then the Panthers again on the road to round out the first half. Again, just to reiterate, I don't like this flip-flop every other week. You don't get a 2-week stretch at least somewhere, anywhere in there that you can sort of get a little R&R for one weekend. So that's just a little annoying in my opinion, but I'm sure that they'll be able to handle it just fine. Moving on to the second half, again, nice to open the second half against the Broncos at home. You don't have to travel to Denver and play in the mile-high altitude. Saints on the road. Raiders and Saints back-to-back home games. The only back-to-back home games you get all season. That's annoying. And then you got the Chargers on the road, a Bucks at home, and then you end the season back-to-back road games, which is really not fair considering the rest of it. And they're against the Chiefs and the Bucks, who are definitely going to be competing for a playoff spot. And that Bucks game could be critical to them getting one of those final playoff spots in the NFC. So that is a look at the schedule. 3 big storylines I'm looking at this year. I can't read it. Right side offensive line, I've already mentioned that. Lindstrom and McGarry have to do a lot better this year. Play calling, now that Todd Gurley's in town, will they be relying less on Matt Ryan to move the ball down the field, even though they have a really talented group of pass catchers? And then the third one is just the tough schedule, which I've already sort of laid out for you. And the road schedule itself is pretty daunting, with games in Dallas, in Green Bay, against the Vikings, and then to end the season on the road against the Chiefs and the Bucks. It's a lot of traveling back and forth every other week for them. So they might be a little worn out by the time the season ends, but I do think that they are more than talented and more than capable of at least coming in second and getting a wild card spot in this division. So that's it. That's going to do it for this preview video of the Atlanta Falcons. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.